Welcome to the Indie Musician Summit 2021 with your host, Kate Westwood, brought to you by Westwood Management.
Well, welcome back to the Indie Musician Summit. I'm Kate again, I'm your host, and I'm so excited to take you all the way over to Cape Town in South Africa. Am I correct with that, Jason? Yes, got Jason Grishkoff, who is the founder of Submithub. We're going to get to know you, Jason, and hear a little bit about your story. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Whew, okay, so it's morning time for you, it's night time. I love it. We're truly international. Jason, just tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit of the history of your life, and have you always lived in South Africa? I mean, we've just met, so I would love to get to know you a little bit more.
Okay, cool. I did grow up in Cape Town, but I moved to the States when I was 12. So my parents had been part of the orchestra in Cape Town, and they lost funding, and my dad was American, so they decided, okay, now's the chance for us to pack up and move to the States. So I had a very musical upbringing, and I continued to be very in the music world when I moved to the States. So obviously playing piano, singing, guitar, had a couple bands. But when I was in the States, they were about 10 or 15 years ahead as far as technology was concerned. And when we arrived in California, we got fiber internet in 1997. I don't know if you even have that in Australia yet.
I wouldn't be able to tell you. We've got a broadband. I think ours is actually low in terms of capacity. But anyway, keep going.
Last time I was in Australia, it was quite slow. But as a teenager, I got very into technology. I started fiddling with building computers, and next thing I knew, I was playing computer games as a professional, which basically just meant corporate sponsorships and stuff like that. No real money involved. We'd get free food and free candy and free equipment. But it meant that I transitioned from music into technology. And I started fiddling around with building businesses and doing that kind of thing. Then I did school at university in San Diego. I ended up getting a job out in DC, and it was a terrible job. And I didn't enjoy what I was doing at all. My job was to figure out how much to pay executives. Did you even know that existed as a job? So what happens is companies hire consulting firms to justify their salaries. So if an executive is getting paid a boatload of money, the trick is to hire a consulting firm to say that that is definitely the right amount. And then you can validate it. Yeah. No one can come and say, hey, why are you paying yourself? And then you say, no, this is in line with all of my peers, and I need to get paid this much. And here's the consulting documents to back it up. So I was doing that, and I hated it. And this was 2008, 2009, which was sort of the peak of BitTorrent and downloading music online. SoundCloud didn't exist. Spotify didn't exist. The streaming industry was in its infancy, really. And it was all about downloading MP3s and sharing MP3s. So I decided to start a little side project, a music blog, where I shared great albums that I had just discovered on these torrenting websites. And I would do these little reviews, and I would send them to my friends who I'd left back in San Diego, because I was feeling down and depressed and sad. And this was my way to connect with them. So I had this newsletter initially that I would send out. Here's 5 songs or 5 albums I discovered this week. And eventually that grew into a music blog, which I called Indie Shuffle. And so I started Indie Shuffle in about 2009, which means it's been going for 12 years now. And initially it was an MP3 blog, as all the blogs were at the time. And a lot of our traffic came not just from people who were looking to find new music, but people who wanted an easy way to download MP3s. And with that came a lot of trouble from these content cops, these MP3 police that would go around issuing takedown notices. You know, Universal Music has demanded that we get you to remove this MP3 or you will be sued. And that's actually when SoundCloud emerged. And they were the saviors of music blogging, because they came along and said, hey, you guys don't have to host MP3s anymore. Just put a SoundCloud embed on your website and no one's going to chase you down anymore. And SoundCloud exploded overnight, in part because thousands of music blogs started to use them as a safe way to share music. So Indie Shuffle was growing and growing and growing, and I still hated my job in DC. And I was on the verge of getting fired. I was actually under a performance review, and my manager had said, look, you need to stop with this blog, focus on your career, that's what matters. And that's when I got a phone call from Google, and they said, hey, we need to hire someone for our executive compensation department. Are you interested? And of course, I'm like, yeah, I love executive compensation. This is my passion, my dream. It's everything I want in life. And when I started the interview process, they actually latched onto the fact that I had a music blog. And that was the cool thing that got me the job. Because normally it's quite a dry industry, executive compensation, not terribly exciting. And so when they saw that I had a music blog on the side, they thought, man, that's cool. Okay, let's hire him. So I think I got hired at Google, not necessarily because of my aptitude or skill, but because they thought it would be cool to have someone who likes music. So I continued to grow Indie Shuffle on the side from 2010 to 2013. And that was really the peak of music blogging. So in that day and age, a music blog could make or break an artist. And if you managed to get 10 or 15 music blogs to write about you, and you could chart on Hype Machine. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yep.
For those who aren't, Hype Machine was this really cool, still is, website that tracked all of the music blogs and sort of aggregated the decisions of what they were covering. And so you could go onto Hype Machine and say, wow, okay, 30 blogs have written about this one song. And it was a really easy way for the industry to keep track of who was getting buzz. So if you were an artist and you hit #1 on Hype Machine's charts back in 2011 or 2012, you'd probably get a phone call from Coachella and Sony Music and just tons of people who wanted your details. And I can think of lots of artists who really made their break at the time. Lana Del Rey, Kid Cudi, The Weeknd, like these sort of names that have become household names. Lord. Yeah. And they were all just writing blogs, and so we were king and queen makers. We were able to collectively blow people up, and with that came a lot of money. So Spin magazine, which was up there with Rolling Stone and NME as a print magazine, had been trying to transition to digital, and part of their strategy was to buy up music blogs or sign exclusive deals with them.
Oh, wow.
So they had their sales department, which was running out of print sales to make. And so they started making digital sales. And they came to Indie Shuffle and they said, can we have all of your ad space? And I said, sure, but it's very expensive. And they said, okay, cool. We'll pay you $15,000 a month for all of your ad space. And I went, okay, yeah, fine. I could deal with that. And in the background, I'm like, yes. And I quit Google. I actually quit Google, it was a crazy decision to make, but I thought, I mean, $180,000, I was 26 or 27 at the time. That's great. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, didn't have a house. So I quit my job and I moved to Amsterdam, and I just got super stoned for 2 months. Then I went to Barcelona and I hung out on the beach for 2 months. And I just kind of hopped around living this dream with this music blog, funding it. Only problem was they weren't cutting any checks. And so I was like, well, where's my $15,000 a month, guys? Oh, sorry, we'll get it to you next month. And after about 6 months, they still hadn't paid me. And I was like, okay, hold on. Maybe this was a really hasty decision. And eventually Spin went bankrupt, and they never actually paid the music blogs a cent. They ran away with all the money. God, it was a mess. They blew through $60 million in a year somehow, and then went bankrupt. And I think there might have been some stuff going on in the background. But us as blogs, even Hype Machine, they were part of this deal. I think they lost out on over $1 million. And yeah, it was pretty rough. So 2014, back to the drawing board, needed to start from scratch. So I got ads up and running on Indie Shuffle, but instead of making $15,000 a month, we were making $2,000. And I go, okay, all right, okay. Can't move back to San Francisco on that, but I could move to Cape Town, which is where I grew up. And so I came down here and I fell in love with it. The weather is amazing. The scenery is amazing. The food, the wine. I mean, it's great. And $2,000 a month goes a long way. So I had that. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, this can't go on forever. I either need to start another business, or I'm going to have to go groveling back to Google. And I didn't want to go back because that's sort of admitting defeat. Hey guys, I tried, couldn't make it on my own. Can I come back and do executive compensation? Oh, and I mean, I'm sure I would have been happy. Google was way different. I did enjoy it a lot, but I tinkered around with a couple freelance jobs, helped a few websites with code. And so I had sort of taught myself over the years how to do this coding. And so I thought, okay, you know what? There's a lot of music blogs out there who might want a fancy music player on their website. The idea that you can visit a website, hit play, and navigate around while the song still plays was revolutionary still. I remember Indie Shuffle actually had it before SoundCloud. So, and today we take it for granted. Of course, when you navigate around a website, the music keeps, why wouldn't it? But so I went and I freelanced for a few music blogs trying to get them to that process. Like, hey, let's set you up so that that's how your website works. And in that process, I leveled up my coding. And then towards the end of 2015, I set out to solve a big problem that I had with the hopes that it would turn into a business. And the problem was Indie Shuffle was receiving over 300 emails per day from artists, labels, publicists who wanted us to blog about them. And in 2015, music blogs were still fairly relevant, but they definitely weren't at that 2012, 2013 peak. It didn't mean that we were getting fewer emails though. And the internet was making music more accessible to people. And I wasn't paying attention to those 300 emails. There were a few publicists I would pay attention to, but most of the time what we were looking at were other music blogs. And it just became this regurgitation of the same content across all the blogs. There was very little new music being exposed in 2015 and 2016. And it was quite frustrating as an artist, I think, to try and break into the scene because blogs were all ignoring their emails. It was too overwhelming. And it was the same stuff. So you'd be posting a new song by all the same artists that you had been covering 3 years ago. So I created a website called Submithub. And the idea was, as an artist, you simply come in, put in your song name, song title, and a link to your song, either from SoundCloud or YouTube. And then on my end, I wrote some little code so that it came through as a nice little feed of songs, all in the same format, all consistent, unlike emails, which would have, here's an MP3, here's a Dropbox link, here's Spotify, here's all the same. And I could just zip through it, hit play, and then I had a thumb up or a thumb down button. And thumb up would send you an email and say, hey, Jason from Indie Shuffle wants to write about you. Let's chat. And thumb down said, hey, Jason from Indie Shuffle doesn't like the song. Sorry. And so that idea took off quite quickly. Within a couple of weeks, I had 10 music bloggers using it. But the artists came back saying, hey, this is rad, but can you tell me why you don't like the song? And I said, okay, yeah, for $1, I'll tell you. And that is Submithub. So the same idea still exists. And it ended up working very effectively. So instead of paying a publicist $2,000 to run your campaign for you, you can actually just go on Submithub, spend $100, contact 100 bloggers, and get 100 responses within 48 hours.
Yeah.
And so here we are, 6 years later.
Wow.
Wink. And it's a lot bigger now.
It is a lot bigger. Yeah. I think I was looking the other day, something like is that over 1 million? Now I'm confused. 21 million songs shared or submissions. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's approaching 22 million songs submitted and over 2 million songs shared.
Okay. Yeah.
Granted, that double counts songs. So, I mean, it's not 2 million unique songs. It's 2 million shares.
Shares. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I love that. The way that story weaved through, from
it's like breathe. That was a long one. Okay.
Love that,
And
Jason.
that's my life.
Yeah, that's your life. And so
Yeah.
tell me really quickly, Submithub, have you got a team working with you? Has that grown, or is it just you still kind of managing it all?
So we've got a team of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full-time employees, including myself. And we also have 3 part-time employees who help out a lot with support, customer support. So we have around-the-clock 24-hour customer support within minutes. Oh, there's your cat. Hey, cat. Ginger.
He is Ginger. Oh, there you go. Link. His name is Link. I was trying to keep him out of it, but he's poking his head.
No, he wants to get in. So yeah, we've got 5 full-time employees. I am still the only coder on the website. And that's both an advantage and a disadvantage. I think it's a major advantage because we move very quickly. If there's an idea, boom, it happens. And it also means that I can pay close attention to customer feedback and integrate things and keep moving. I know that when you have a larger team, you have to have meetings and plan things out and then set deadlines. And with me, it can, if I see something that's cool, I can sort of pump it out within a couple hours. So yeah, I'm still the only developer, but there are 5 of us working on it now. And it hums along pretty smoothly.
Okay. I love it. Well, I was saying to you before we clicked record that I'm releasing a song at the moment, a single, and I, for the first time ever, jumped onto Submithub. And so I would say my user experience has been wonderful. Just because, I'm trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between learning how to do your own PR in that first space, but then also, doing things professionally and getting an understanding of what is important in the industry as an indie artist, and also where's the best place to spend your money versus the results that you want to get. And so that's been the big thing that I liked about it, was that exactly what you said before. I can get a result and an answer for not a large amount of money in a really short period of time. Whereas you can spend, say, $1,000 or $2,000 with a publicist, and their job is to send the information out, but they can't guarantee that you'll get a result or that anyone will share. And so I really liked the platform. I thought it worked really well. What is it mainly that I guess is your heart and your desire for the growth of and supporting indie artists? Like, what is the thing that Submithub's, like, is there an overall ethos or a mission or put you on the spot?
What we do well is we make the connections easy and transparent. So you know who you're contacting, you get a quick response, there's no surprises involved. One of the frustrating points of Submithub for many artists is that there are no guarantees about what will actually come of it. And I think in general, I'm a little bit pessimistic about, cynical is a better word, about how indie artists can actually grow in today's music industry. It's never been more saturated than this, and I don't think it will get any better. I think it's going to just keep going. The digital tools have made it so easy for us to release music, distribute it to the world, and reach out to people. And that's part of Submithub's success, is that this supply and demand has grown a lot. So if you're an artist on Submithub, what we want to deliver for you is a smooth, seamless experience contacting people and understanding what you'll get in advance. And what we won't be able to deliver for you are guaranteed results, because a lot of artists are coming on here looking for growth as an artist. But if there are tens of thousands of songs being sent through every day, you have to be a little bit realistic about where it's going to go and what you're going to get from it. Another problem in today's modern music industry is, whereas music blogs 10 years ago were an excellent centralized source of music discovery utilized by the whole industry, today it is fragmented and spread everywhere. So a lot of people want to get on Spotify editorial playlists and hope that that will be the holy grail, but then notice, when they actually finally land that, a few weeks later they get removed and they've got nothing to show for it. And then you're going, okay, maybe it's Apple Music, or maybe I need to get on Deezer, and maybe I need to get on Tidal or Music Blogs or this or that. There's like no magic centralized process anymore. that an artist can go through. And so that's where a lot of my cynicism comes in. It's just so difficult as an artist to get a break. And I think today we see fewer and fewer artists blowing up. I mean, I can remember 10 years ago, every week there was a new artist blowing up. And I'm not talking like Michael Jackson big or even Billie Eilish big. I'm just talking about bands like Two Door Cinema Club, or, I mean, if we go down to Australia, you had Chet Faker and the Jungle Giants and San Cisco, and you had a lot of great bands coming out of Australia that were suddenly getting booked for tours all over Europe and the UK and the US, and they were making a living. They weren't on the red carpet at, you know, the Grammys, but they were making a living doing what they did. And I think it's getting increasingly more difficult to do that today, but that doesn't mean it's impossible.
Absolutely. Look, I would totally agree with you. It's amazing that we can just do bedroom recording and send stuff out and be on the same platform as Taylor Swift and Coldplay. But I do agree that it's actually harder to get seen because the market is so saturated. Now, what would you recommend to an artist? What really should they be expecting? Because I think that's the big thing, is maybe they're expecting that PR or Submithub or getting on a blog will equal something that, what you were saying, may not equal. What should their expectations be when they're jumping into Submithub and doing PR?
I think it's important to have a strategy in terms of what you're looking to achieve. And for me, in our COVID-19 era, it depends on the type of music you play. But if you are a band who is hopeful of earning money gigging live, which I think covers at least half of bands. I mean, there's this growing lo-fi, hip-hop, steady beats movement, and a lot of those guys aren't actually going to play live. They want to make their money online. But for bands who want to make their money gigging, I feel like local first is probably one of the best PR strategies you can do right now.
Yeah.
There's no point, if you're based in Melbourne, to get a bunch of listeners in South America or even London, because chances of you flying out there to play a gig are very slim. And so
they won't let us leave the country at the moment anyway. So
yeah, and that's the same for most. I mean, no one wants us. We're allowed to leave South Africa, but no one wants us. So if you are an artist, I feel like a local first approach is a good one. So if I was Australian and I landed on Submithub, I would probably start by trying to filter all the Australian and maybe New Zealand blogs to see who I can reach out to. And same for playlists, influencers, etc. So for me, it's a local first type of thing. What you can expect is that most of them will say no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the reality of it. So I'll give you an example. With my blog, Indie Shuffle, we have about a 5% approval rate, and we get sent about 200 songs a week. So that means that we're blogging about 10 of them per week.
Yeah.
Our blog's not going to take much more than that. Our users don't want much more. So 95% of the time we're saying no. And I think the average approval rate is around 20%. But this gets back to sort of our mission, is that the transparency. You can actually see in advance what everyone's approval rate is like, where they share, how engaged their audience is, and that type of stuff. So you can make your decision. But yeah, for me, I think an important starting point is looking local. Yeah. Then, of course, you want to focus on your genre niche. Personally, I don't think Spotify is that great. I know it's a bit weird for me to say that, running a website that connects you with so many Spotify playlisters, but the problem I find with Spotify is it's a very passive listening experience, and I don't know if it's the best way to actually create bonds or connections with artists. So
I don't think there's a very good capacity. You can't do that because they don't pay you, they pay Spotify, and then they don't directly connect with you. So I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, like when I find a Spotify playlist, I either go into Spotify and listen to music I know already, but acts I want to listen to, so albums that span back the last 20 years, or I go in there and I hit shuffle play on a Spotify playlist, I put it in the background, and I don't pay attention. So that's part of the problem. But there are a growing number of artists who are making their money from digital streaming. And so it's a slightly different strategy that they might want to employ. If you are from Melbourne, but you're making lo-fi hip-hop beats and you're never planning on playing a live show, sure, you'll take a bunch of listeners from the States. That's not a big deal. And so your focus then should be hyper targeted on your genre niche. You really want to make sure that you're landing in playlists and editorial content that sort of focuses around your genre. I always warn people to steer clear of playlists that include too many genres. It's actually not a good thing. I think it confuses Spotify's algorithms. But if you make lo-fi beats and you end up in a bunch of lo-fi beats playlists, then Spotify knows that your music is lo-fi beats. And so then they will start to recommend it to lo-fi beats listeners and blah, blah, blah. So it's like keeping that niche is quite important.
Yep.
So there are different strategies for different folks. I don't know if Spotify is the be all and end all, but I think local, be it local to your geography or local to your genre, are both high level good strategies to employ.
So great, so helpful. And I do agree that there is an over focus on Spotify as if it's the way to make a career. And yeah, I definitely think there are other strategies. So, and you know, for me, I work as a music manager as well as doing my own music. So I'm always encouraging people, you've got to be putting your fingers in a bunch of pies. PR is one of them. Social media, like an email list, having merch, doing your live shows, doing live streaming. You know,
you never know where the little breakthroughs will come from. I mean, they might not, but you might get picked up by a tiny little blog with no readership except for one person who's a DJ for Triple J. And then next thing you know, boom.
Yeah. I love that. Now, you were talking about some tips and strategies. So do you have any more that you think would be helpful around PR in general? So you've spoken really quickly, you know, go local, stick with your genre, be broad in your approach to, you know, to communicating. Any other tips or strategies that you would have for people wanting to get started in PR in general, or specifically with Submithub?
Oh, gosh. Well, on the more general side, I will say that Submithub should not be looked at as your be-all and end-all. I did an interview with someone last week, and they asked me to list out some of the Submithub success cases, people who've blown up because of Submithub. And they were a bit surprised when I answered that I can't think of any. Because... I'm going, wait, no, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to give me a list of all the people who've succeeded. And the reality is, I don't think Submithub by itself can make you, can break you out, right? It's all a snowball effect, right? So I can think of a band called Men I Trust, who are from Montreal, and they used Submithub quite heavily early on in their career, and they're huge now. They don't even bother with PR anymore because when they put out a song, they've got their user base and that's it. They just want to focus on music, and it's more financial for them to just put out a song and hey, there it goes. So Submithub helped them a lot initially, but the other driving factors there were they were making really unique music that resonated with a lot of listeners, and that snowball kept going. So was Submithub the thing that did it for them? I can't say yes or no. The world is way too complicated for that. And there's way more going on, right? It's like this chaos system, and you never know what's actually happening. So Submithub can help you in that effort, but from a more broad PR standpoint, you really have to throw spaghetti at the wall to see what's going to stick. And so that means, yeah, you run Submithub to get the blogs out of the way, the Spotify playlist, but you also, you know, put stickers up above, you know, the toilet in a bar, and you hand out pamphlets, and you start to play college gigs, you know, and you really have to approach it from a million different angles, because you never know which one's actually going to work. And the answer is it probably won't just be one. It's going to be this combination of multiple different things. I mean, like, you go play a gig, someone's in there, they don't have any power, but they know someone in the industry who does. They mention it to that person. Like, it just starts to, you just don't know where it's going to happen or if it's going to happen. So Submithub is a useful tool to have in your arsenal, but it's not the be all and end all. And it's not the type of service where I say, like, you got to spend more money. The more money you spend, the better you're going to do. It's not about that. It's about how you spend that money and who you target. So you could very well come on there and just reach out to 5 people, but the genres are perfect. You know that they love your style of music, and they're from your city. And so you have this much better alignment there, and cool, you spent, $10 on that, you got 4 blog posts out of 5. Some people can get an 80 or even 100% approval rate because they're targeting so specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm here to tell you that, that you don't have to spend that much money, and that Submithub's not going to make you famous.
Yeah.
So you should use Submithub.
But it's a part of the process, right? And part of
it's part of it, yeah.
The mindset of realizing that if I want to do this, I'm willing to do this for the long haul. So this may take me a couple of years to figure out my audience, to get my music at a good quality, and also to build my networks in those spaces. It's very rarely someone got famous overnight who didn't spend 10 years before that.
It's super rare.
Their career.
It's so, yeah. We can name them, or you can think of them, because they're mega superstars now. And oftentimes that is actually what happens, is the mega superstars did somehow hit the jackpot. Yeah. All I can think of right now is Billie Eilish, but also Lorde was another one.
Tones and I here in Australia, if you know her, she's a dance monkey. You heard that song? Anyway, she was busking just on the side of the road, but she'd been doing that for 8 or 9 years, and then got some songs blow up and has hit the billion streams on iTunes,
wow,
and Spotify and stuff like that. So, but you just don't.
There's also Kid Lowry now, right?
Yes, yeah, and he was I think won a Triple J, one of our local radio indie radio stations, won their high school thing, and then he went on to do really well. So I think we look at the people who seem to get that magic number, or they win the lottery, and we think, oh yeah, okay, I want to do that. But that's such a small percentage of people that go crazy like that. But then you have, I've never heard of the men I trust, or that band in Montreal.
Right.
I've never heard of them, but they don't need me because I'm probably not their audience.
No.
So, of course, we've all heard of Coldplay and Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and Dolly Parton, for example. But they're but most people will only find an audience in a certain subset, in a certain place, and those people will be passionate, and that's enough for them in their career. And so I guess, yes, I asked the question of expectations because that's what I see people being most disappointed in. And look, I'm going to jump onto, I recently read quite an extensive blog post about why Submithub is not a scam. And
okay, cool. Good. Not by me.
Good. No, it wasn't by you. But because people were, what I saw in some of the comments of people saying, oh, this isn't working, or I don't like this, was what I read into it is that it didn't meet their expectations, and probably they had unrealistic expectations about themselves, about music, and about the music industry, and about what Submithub and PR could do for them. And that's why they were disappointed, because they wanted more than it would ever give them. And so I do think having expectations and right expectations as an artist will help diminish some of that that disappointment. Not that you can ever totally get rid of that in
no.
Yeah.
We try. I mean, that was one of the initial problems when I launched Submithub, and I wasn't expecting it, but just artists expected the world and weren't getting it. And I'm sure publicists had been dealing with that for 10 years. But when I first launched the website, I hadn't thought about that. And so I was dealing with a lot of angry emails from people saying I was clearly missing out on the next big thing, and my service was a scam. And I'm going, I'm just making the connections easy. So the expectation setting has been a big part of the process over the years. And I think you're right. Most of the people who call Submithub a scam have the wrong expectations about how it works. And they're also the type of people who are happy to go onto a website that guarantees you, 50,000 Spotify plays for $10, and they're happy to do that. Mm-hmm. That's not the scam. This one's the scam.
They're not bots at all.
No, it says organic on the website. Organic.
Yeah.
If you ever see a website use that word, turn away and run.
Run away from that, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's the level of we want a quick fix, or we get into music because we want to make money, which I just think is the wrong reason to get into music.
Yeah.
Can I talk really quickly about, you talked about Indie Shuffle, and you've got something around 1,500 blogs and curators, I believe, on Submithub. Tell me a little bit about, because in the articles that I read, people were saying, oh, they're just trying to make money as a blog. And I was like, but aren't they, it's not like they work for Rolling Stone, or they probably don't get paid to do this. They're doing this for free, aren't they? So help me understand a little bit more about the actual blogs and what the benefit is for them being on Submithub, and and help us just to get a greater understanding of what it means to be a blogger. You've talked about it a little bit, but is the time that it takes to listen and write something up and submit it, and I'd just love a little bit more insight into that.
Okay, well, it's good. The context I gave you earlier on is good. I mean, Indie Shuffle signed a really big ad deal, and that money dried up. And when I restarted, the money was disappearing. And that's been a consistent trend across not just music blogging, but any type of independent media. Revenue drying up. It's all shifting towards Google and Facebook because, to be honest, they can do a much better job with the targeting of their advertising. And blogs were honestly not much better. They're a little bit better than newspapers. And that media is very difficult to actually track and see results on. So, we were selling ads for $5 for 1,000 views, but how many clicks did you get from that? Almost nothing. Whereas, here comes Google saying, oh no, it's 10 cents a click. So for $5, you're going to get 50 clicks. And that's way more than, people were ever actually clicking on ads. So the blogging industry as a whole, not just music, has seen this slow loss of visitors because Facebook and Google have gobbled that all up. They've seen a slow loss of advertising revenue, again, because it's been gobbled up. And they've had to look to other methods of earning income for what they do. Now, almost all bloggers are hobbyists across all industries, whether they're doing, it's like a home improvement blog or a cooking blog or a music blog. It's something that they do on the side when they get home from work. Instead of sitting down to watch Netflix, they like to find music and write about it. And that's, I think, broadly speaking, that's the general profile of a music blogger. They're the people back in high school who would burn mixtapes for you. And now they're the ones who come home and they actually like to sit there and listen and fiddle with their blog, maybe tweak the design. It's a hobby. But that comes with some costs. I mean, I don't have to tell musicians this either. Of course, there's many costs involved in being a musician, but being a blogger, you have to pay for hosting, web development if you don't know how to do it. There's the time and effort that goes into it. And then there's the fact that as soon as you start to develop any sort of profile, you suddenly become highly in demand and everyone is looking to contact you. So you get to a point where you're getting 300 emails a day and you're going, Jesus, man, this was a hobby and now nothing is sacred. So the reason Submithub works so well is because of that thing I mentioned earlier, where if I pay you $1, you'll tell me why. And the majority of that money is going to the blogs themselves. So some of the bigger blogs have been able to offset their loss in revenue. And there's even a few who are still managing to do it full time. Like this is their thing. They're probably earning a couple $1,000s a month from it. I think on average, bloggers on Submithub are earning about $150 to $200 a month. So it's nothing big. But what it means is that they can come home from work. Here's 10 or 20 songs waiting for you to listen to and review, and you make $10 doing it. That's it. So it's not necessarily highway robbery. It's always relative, right? I mean, someone in Melbourne, I mean, your cost of living is pretty steep there. So for you, you're going, oh, $10, that's fine. There's a coffee for you.
2 coffees.
2 coffees.
Unless it's almond milk or something, then it's really expensive.
Yeah. Here's your oat milk, double whatever. So from that perspective, it's not that much money. But then again, you might have someone from South Africa who's going, well, $10 is actually a significant amount of money for me to be investing in this. And these guys are just milking it and they're just going to reject me anyway. So it's always relative. But at the end of the day, it's not a huge money-making exercise for bloggers. It's this, like there've been a few websites to come along and try to compete with Submithub by offering to pay bloggers more. And they're thinking, okay, cool, all these bloggers are going to join us. But then what happens is that the artist stops submitting to them. So the price point that we have hasn't really changed in 6 years. And it seems to be the right sort of balance between it's affordable and the bloggers still feel like it's worth their time, but everyone is generally okay with it. So yeah, why do blogs do it? It's because they get paid. I mean, it keeps their hobby enjoyable and means that every time when they get home after work, they can spend an hour on it and not feel like it's become this tedious thing that just, because that's what it, after a couple of years of blogging, like, Jesus, not more emails. Oh my God. Select all, delete.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they do it.
Okay. That's really helpful. And I think we have to think about that. These are people living their lives, music lovers. We want them to do well, because then that means that there's more music blogs out there. If they give up, then there's no one to write about us. And so
yeah, if they give up, then you just got Spotify making all the decisions, which is kind of where we're heading anyway. And I don't know if that's a good thing. It's a whole different discussion to have. But yeah, I mean, I don't like the place where a corporation gets to decide who makes it or breaks it.
Yeah.
It's nice to have some independent voices, and it also gives small artists who actually don't stand a chance with the corporates to get some exposure. Influencers are totally different beasts, though, huh?
All right. Do you want to touch on that? Because I know there's the desire to, you can submit to influencers on Spotify and Submithub as well.
Yeah, so we're following the trends, if you will. I mean, I brought up Kid Lowry earlier, but so much of his success has been through TikTok. And so there's an increasing demand from artists for coverage on TikTok. How do I blow up on TikTok? How do I get on TikTok? How do I do that? And it's got many parallels to what we were seeing about 4 years ago, where artists were asking us about Spotify. And at the time we were just blogs, and we added Spotify. And so we're just following the trend. And so we've been signing up a lot of influencers lately. And of course, many of them want $500 or $1,000 to share a song because they're worth it. And so we're dealing with very different expectations around how much they should get paid. So music bloggers are a lot more altruistic. They come into it. Payola is a no-no in the music industry. You don't accept payment to write about content. You're doing it because of your street cred. Like, you want to find good music. You want to be the person who found this act, and you get to say, that was us. And so for them, $10 or $15 a day is great. It's for my hobby. I love doing this. For an influencer, it's a totally different story. And we tried on that $10 to $15 a day model with them, and they weren't biting. They were all going, well, my manager says I have to leave Submithub because you're underpricing me. And it's crazy. Anyway, we have settled on a different model with influencers on Submithub, and it is payola. You are basically buying a placement on their social media. The prices are substantially less than they would typically ask themselves. I've got a child coming. Hey, child. Oh, what have you got?
I'll get my cat back.
Yeah, get your cat back, and we can say hi to the child. Wink. What you got there? No, this is now part of the interview.
Hi.
There's a cat. Yeah, there's a pirate cat.
Blinky only has one eye.
Oh, it's a kitty cat.
What's your name?
Yeah, this one is Gemma,
Hi,
and she's
Gemma.
about to go. Oh,
Bye.
stolen.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. Bye.
I can remove that. That's fine.
Oh, you don't have to. I mean, maybe people. It adds a human side.
I know.
Yeah. So influencers are upfront payment. Right now it ranges between 5 credits and 200 credits, where credits are roughly $1 each. They're less if you buy them in bulk.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the value in influencers is in trying to develop your brand and telling your story. So again, this is about setting expectations, where a lot of people approach TikTok wondering how they can go viral and how they're going to pick up 1 million views. And so they get blinded by people's numbers and their followers and their engagement. And you want to, you're sitting there going, okay, is this worth $2,000 to pay for this TikToker with 1 million followers to share? And the answer is no, it's not. It's not. And I think the real value of TikTok and Instagram is actually how you engage with your fans and growing your presence on there. So you see more and more acts these days releasing regular content. I believe TikTok has said you should put up 2 or 3 videos a day. I'm sure that's in their interest to encourage you to make more content. But it's slightly different from a platform like Facebook, which is a lot more established and actually punishes you for putting up that much content. TikTok is saying, no, put up more and we'll give you more. So there's a lot of artists who've managed to build up 100,000, 200 followers by just publishing, you know, like things of them playing live in a nice setting and whatnot. So TikTok, in terms of buying these placements, can be used to try and push your brand. So a lot of famous musicians are known more for their brand than for their music. For example, I know who Kiss is. I know what Kiss looks like. I couldn't tell you a single Kiss song.
So true.
Right? I don't know. I bet if I heard them on the radio, I'd go, oh, this is them? Yeah, I know this song. But I don't know any songs by Kiss. And so what we're trying to push with these influencer shares is that you should focus less on the numbers and who you're going for and more on the content, because what you want to do with that content is leverage it to engage your existing fan base and try to grow it as well. So let's say you've come up with some silly prompt where at the drop, everyone throws their hat in the air. Sorry, that's the best I could come up with. And so you get a bunch of TikTokers for $10 or $20 to go and do this. On each video, then you want to comment, engage with them, and maybe even do a reshare. Like on TikTok, you can do a duet or a response, or like you want to re-engage with that content. And so much of using TikTok and Instagram is actually about you engaging and growing with it. And it's not for everyone, right? If you don't know how TikTok works and you don't know how Instagram works and you don't want to be sitting there in front of the camera filming yourself or doing all this type of stuff, skip it. Like, don't go do influencer campaigns. It's not worth your time. Like, simply putting up a video and getting 1 million players is just you're gonna go, okay, now what? Did that flow through to Spotify? No. Did it do? No. The real trick with those platforms is that you yourself have to be on them. So it's a lot of expectation setting and almost coaching, which we haven't really done with artists before, but we're starting to do now with the TikTok side, is kind of give you, okay, here's what you got to do. Come up with a cool prompt or an idea. Okay, now get them to execute that prompt cohesively. Everyone does it. Now re-engage with that content. Share it with your existing fans. It's a lot cooler to share a TikTok video like, hey, check out this video that a TikTok person did to my song. It's way cooler than sharing a playlist and being like, hey, I'm number 47 in this playlist. Oh, wait, never mind. They removed it. Like, so there's a lot more value in it, but it is also a lot more expensive relative to the, it is and it isn't. You're paying someone to sit down in front of a camera, record themselves, and do something. And I think if you go into it and you half-ass it, because you can on Submithub, you don't actually have to ask them to do something. You can pay less money and then they can do whatever. Personally, total waste of money. People are doing it, but it's a waste of money. I mean, you just don't have anything to show for it, and you're not pushing yourself or your message. Anyway, that's like 2 minutes of influencers. Yeah.
Hey, I think let's wrap it up. It's been so good chatting to you, Jason. Just getting an insight. You know, I think you're a really interesting guy. You got obviously a cool backstory, and I love the fact that you came from being a blogger and you thought, actually, I think this whole area needs to change. Partly because you didn't get 300 emails a day, but I love that it's come from that place of there's a pain point. How can I solve this and use the skills that you've got to do that? And I'm so glad that it's working well. I'm looking forward to doing more on there and encouraging the artists that I work with to jump on and to have it as we mentioned as a part of what they're doing, not the whole thing. But one question that I'm asking all the speakers this year in the summit, because the pandemic and COVID has had such an effect on the music industry, whether you can play live or not. Like here in Melbourne at the moment, we're locked down, so we can't. Our events and music industry is really struggling. And people are spending less money on going out or buying music or doing all those kind of things. And I really think that the challenge of how we're viewing our future, a lot of artists rethinking what it means to be an artist and whether they can afford to do this long term, but also in terms of our mental health. So I'll get to my question is, what are your thoughts around for yourself, how you're managing, how you're looking after, how you're trying to pay attention to your mental health in this crazy time? And if there's any, ideas or thoughts that you have that have been helpful for you that we could, just share with everyone as a way to engage with what somebody else is doing. They can try it for themselves.
I mean, it's going to be so nuanced for each person. But I think one thing that many of us could probably do with is more time off the internet and out. And I don't know how strict your lockdown is in Australia. Are you allowed out of the house?
Oh yeah, we can walk and exercise and stuff, but
Just
at the moment
walk.
we've got limited space of where we can go.
A 15-minute walk. So getting some exercise is a great thing. And the other one is to, whatever you do, just don't go on Twitter. That's it. What a terrible place to be. Twitter is just such it's a place where everyone has a voice, but most of those voices are very negative. And it's just not fun. It's just not fun. That's my take. Go for a walk and get off Twitter. It can be tough otherwise, but I think for our hard lockdowns in South Africa, the first one we had, you weren't allowed out of the house. The only thing you were allowed to do was grocery shop. Mm-hmm. But you weren't allowed to go for a walk. You weren't allowed to do anything, and it was really difficult from a mental health standpoint because we were so locked into the internet. And after a month of that, it was becoming overwhelming. So yeah, that's my thing. I think it's good for us to get out.
Right.
Just go for a walk.
Fabulous. I love that.
Yeah.
Get out, enjoy, and we're just about finishing winter, going into spring here. So we're recording this in August. But
us too, yeah.
So looking forward to enjoying more of that.
Yeah, it's that time of year where it's getting better, but then it actually just tricks you and it ends up being worse.
The 2 warm days, and then like it gets really cold.
Yeah, we just had our 2 warm days, and now it's storming.
It's storming.
It's coming. January. It's not until January that it actually ends up being nice. Okay.
So good. Cool. I don't really have any other questions. So Sarah, do you kind of any final one more that you want to say to everyone?
No, I'm okay. I mean, if anyone ever wants to reach out, jason@submithub.com, and that's it.
He loves getting emails, lots of emails.
I don't get many.
I don't get many. Maybe that's why you responded to mine so quickly. I was like, what?
Yeah. I'll also have a 0 inbox policy, so I like to have 0 unread emails.
Me too.
Yeah.
I always when people on their phone, they have like 3,000, like the number above there. I'm like, what the heck? Why aren't you just making them read?
How?
Well, it's me.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Okay. Jason, so great. Thank you so much for taking time. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a bit, to hear the story. And, what I'm really hoping, one thing I did hear, I saw a post that said, during the 2018 GFC that, there was so many people who lost their jobs. There was such big issues in the world, financially. But that's when Airbnb started. That's when Uber started. That's when all these big companies that exist now didn't exist before that time, because people had to pivot. They had to go, all right, well, there's a pain point at the moment and things aren't working the way they're supposed to. How do we make a change? And so I love that you in a way have done that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more innovation and more ways to connect artists to their fans, to people in the industry. And I would love to I can't wait to see what else comes out in the next couple of years. Okay, well, hopefully I can be part of that, but we'll see. You are as well. Yeah. Awesome. Well, all the best to you and your family, and thanks for being part of the summit. Cool. Here we go.